I think it's a fascinating time. We've talked for many years about the potential for chemotherapy-free regimens, and it's never really been a reality. Rituximab has made a difference, but it's been additive. We've added it to chemotherapy. We've never really been in a place where we can use things in place of chemotherapy. And there are a number of drugs now which are highly active, which are oral, which particularly in CLL look to be game-changing compounds. Which is the right one is a big question. But I think patients need to be aware of in the UK is these drugs are available in the UK. The pivotal trials with these drugs are happening in the UK, and ask the question, because there will be a centre somewhere where you can get access to these drugs, and it's a very exciting time. And patients will travel. Ask the question, where is this available and can I be considered? I think that's an important thing.
So we're presenting at this meeting today the first randomised trial showing the really impressive results with ibrutinib therapy, which improves remissions, the length of remissions and survival for patients with CLL. We've had data over the last few years which has looked like these drugs would have an impact in CLL. We now have unequivocal evidence that these drugs will be effective, and I think really promise to open up a whole new dawn of treatment for this disease, for CLL, and hopefully we can move these drugs earlier in the disease, combine them with other therapies, and move to an attempt or a movement towards curing patients with CLL.
What I think most of us find very exciting about CLL is that the new compounds that we're been hearing about that are going further into clinical development are all based upon an understanding of the biology of the disease. Therefore, we've got therapies that really target the disease, and we can start to think about the ways in which we may be able to put those together. So what are those compounds? So obviously a lot of excitement about ibrutinib, idelalisib and ABT-199, targeting different pathways that are important within the CLL.
We know from our previous experience over many years that when patients fail our frontline therapies and are resistant to treatment or have porous disease, their outcomes in terms of quality of life, in terms of time in remission and in survival are very poor. And so we need better therapies. Our conventional therapies in that group of patients, such as antibody treatments, are really not effective enough. And what we've shown in the RESONATE trial, which is the largest randomised phase 3 trial in this group of patients that we've seen, which compared one of the new agents, ibrutinib, as a single agent against the conventional therapy for those in those patients, was there's a significant improvement in terms of responses, tolerability of treatment and in survival. So really exciting results, I think, for patients with relapsed chronic lymphocytic leukemia. The drug is likely to be approved and likely to be used as a single agent oral therapy, so just as 3 capsules a day in CLL, taken every day and controlling the disease. We're seeing very good responses. It's usually very well tolerated when used that way. I think the excitement, as well as having a very effective new agent in CLL and really much better than we've had before, is how we will combine this agent with other treatments. So can we really improve the outcomes of therapies, of conventional therapies, both in relapsed patients and in frontline? How do we combine different oral therapies, potentially, or antibody therapies in this drug to get better, deeper remissions and potentially in the future be able to stop treatments rather than continue it indefinitely and move at least to better survival and the ultimate aim of moving towards cure of this disease.
What it means for our patients is that we've now got a variety of new drugs approved, just about to approved or soon to be approved to add to the drugs that we already have. All of these drugs at the present time are going to be indicated for relapsed and refractory patients with CLL, and what is very clear is that for those relapsed patients, particularly for those patients who've got the 17p deletion, which has been very difficult for us to treat in the past, there's a very good option available for our patients. What's happening now is that these drugs are being taken earlier into development to understand whether, if we're seeing such good responses in the relapsed refractory setting, will we be able to either replace or add to our therapies in the future. So right now it means that we've got very effective salvage therapies for patients who failed other therapies. What it might mean for the future is a move completely away from chemotherapy and starting to think about a chemotherapy-free regimens as a way of treating CLL.
So idelalisib is a similar agent to ibrutinib. It targets CLL cells, it stops them proliferating, it stops them growing, it moves them from the tissue, as ibrutinib does, into the blood, and creates remissions and it has also very impressive results in randomized trials. Idelalisib is generally being used in CLL in combination with rituximab, with antibody-based therapy. The randomized trial showed a very impressive improvement with a combination of rituximab plus idelalisib compared to rituximab alone, and again overall survival advantages seen with that combination. We're going to present some more results from that trial in this meeting in EHA, showing actually, quite interestingly, that if you give idelalisib before rituximab, you get very much less infusion reactions to the rituximab. So it alters the way the disease responds to other therapies. So I think idelalisib will also be an important part of our treatment for CLL.
It's exciting to see CLL patients become much more involved in the way in which we think about the disease evolving and patients becoming more involved in the decision making. This might be very important in terms of lobbying for access to many of these very impressive agents which are being developed, for which we may find challenges in terms of the current financial market. So I think that's one thing in which we can start be looking to have the patients be more empowered. What's exciting for the patients is to be able to tell them about the large number of new drugs which have been developed. We've got to remember that we only had chlorambucil for 50 years in this disease. Then we added in a couple of other drugs, and then suddenly in the last year we've had 3 drugs approved in the US. To see these large numbers of new drugs approved means many more opportunities for our patient, and it's a really exciting time to share that information with them.